Homage to the fundamental teacher Buddha Shakyamuni. Homage to the wisdom warrior Manjushri. Homage to all the lineage masters. The supreme subtle Dharma is rarely encountered in eons. Now we hear and follow it. May we realize the Tathagata's meaning. To liberate beings, please generate bodhicitta. Next, we shall discuss the Platform Sutra. We are currently at the section where the sixth patriarch delivers his final instructions and transmits the Dharma to his disciples who have the karmic connection. Previously, it was mentioned that if the lineage of the sixth patriarch is transmitted continuously without interruption, the fundamental principles of the school will not be lost. What does today's teaching say? My reading wasn't great to begin with, and today it might be even worse. There is a saying, I was already quite plain-looking, and today, after a bout of crying, I look even worse. In the first year of the Taiji era, the year of Renzi, in the 7th month, the master sent his disciples to Guen Temple in Shinzhou to build a pagoda, urging them to complete the work quickly. In his later years, during the first year of the Taiji era, which was during the reign of Emperor Ruizong of the Tang dynasty, in the 7th month, the 6th patriarch called his disciples and told them something. Jinzhou was the place where the master was born and would later enter parinirvana. Guen Temple was specially built for him by the emperor because the master had declined an invitation to the imperial palace. The emperor ordered the temple to be built, and here the master requested a pagoda to be constructed, demanding it be finished in a very short time. This was around the year 712 AD. It was completed by the end of the following summer. The pagoda was finished after that summer. In the past, many ancestral masters would have a stupa or pagoda built when they were about to enter parinirvana. This tradition still exists in many temples in the Han region today. On the first day of the 7th month, he gathered his followers and said, "In the 8th month, I wish to leave this world. If any of you have doubts, you must ask me soon, so that I may clear them for you and put an end to your delusions. Once I am gone, there will be no one to teach you." On the first day of the 7th month, he ordered the pagoda to be finished immediately. By the end of the next summer, it was done. Then, on the first day of the 7th month, he gathered his assembly of disciples. The 6th patriarch told them, "I plan to leave this world in the 8th month." See, he gave them exactly 1 month's notice. He invited them to ask any questions while they still could. I can dispel your doubts and help you eliminate all your confused and erroneous views. I mentioned this last night as well. The process of a student asking questions and a teacher providing answers is extremely important in the Han Buddhist tradition. The master had only 1 month left. If you have questions, ask them now. After I am gone, there will be no one to guide you. For his disciples, this was a profound moment. Many had followed the 6th patriarch for years. Once the master enters parinirvana, they might not simply go to another teacher. It wasn't that there were no other places to ask questions in the world, but the master knew these people had relied solely on him. He had 1 month left before departing. He urged them to ask their questions immediately so he could answer them. "Once I leave, no one will teach you." This is something our Dharma teachers and friends here must take to heart. When those under our guidance have questions, we should try our best to answer them. Of course, we must consider the timing and setting. Sometimes when I'm out walking, people will block my path and say, "Wait a moment, I have a question for you." Occasionally, my temper isn't the best and I'll say, "Go, go, go. Can't you see I'm walking? This is not the time for questions." Blocking someone on the street with a microphone isn't quite appropriate. However, we should all understand that people have doubts, but the truth is, all of our fellow practitioners here should understand in the future, some people have doubts, especially those who have just started practicing Buddhism. They have many questions. Often these questions seem very naive. Theoretically, most of these doubts are already addressed in our books. But some people don't read, they insist on asking. And even after they ask, they don't bother to remember the answer. This is a common ailment today. It's something like this. No matter how well you answer, they don't record it. It's almost as if they are just testing the teacher. "How do you explain this?" they ask. And when you explain it, you wonder, are they satisfied? Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. That kind of attitude isn't very helpful. But look at the 6th patriarch. Even with only a month left, he encouraged his disciples to ask. When Mipham Rinpoche was nearing his parinirvana, he also said, "I was originally a great bodhisattva who came here to propagate the Buddha Dharma. But because sentient beings have too little merit, I could not complete this great activity as I had envisioned. If you have any questions in these final days, ask me quickly. We cannot stay together like this for much longer. Previously I never told anyone that I was a great bodhisattva, but now that I am close to death, I cannot speak falsely or deceive you. You can find these words at the end of Mipham Rinpoche's biography. He meant the same thing. I will soon enter parinirvana. These great masters are very clear about their time. Some declare it directly, while others hint at it indirectly. Just like when His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche passed away, it was only later that we realized he had already told us in his own way. We just hadn't noticed at the time. At this time when he said this, the Master spoke. Upon hearing this, Fahe and the others wept. Only Shenhui remained unmoved, showing neither grief nor tears. The 10 great disciples, including Fahai, heard their teacher say he would pass away in the 8th month. Everyone was devastated. They were all in tears. Only Shenhui, the one who had come to the Master at the age of 13, seemed to have no reaction at all. He was exceptionally calm. He didn't cry, didn't make a scene, and didn't show any sorrow. His expression was composed. The 6th Patriarch went on to praise him, specifically, from a worldly perspective. When a relative or parent dies, it is traditional for those nearby to wail and cry. Indeed, some feel such intense pain that they cannot help themselves. But from the perspective of spiritual practice and the Dharma, one should try not to weep. For example, when a master enters parinirvana, there is no need for sorrow. This is an important point. In the biography of Gyal Tsongkhapa, after his passing, his lineage disciples were all deeply, deeply grieved. I recall reading the biography of Tsongkhapa written by Kedrup Gelek Pelzang. The way he described it was so moving that it makes your heart ache just to read it. He wrote that the rivers of the world ran dry, the sun and moon fell to the earth, and the entire world was plunged into darkness. He described many things. Indeed, when a master who is like a brilliant sun passes away, one feels this way. But Kedrup J later saw that all the disciples, including the monastics, had lost their motivation even to shave their heads or wear their robes properly. He felt this was wrong and was not a proper way to honor the teacher. Then he spoke to the destined disciples. All gatherings must end in separation, and all that is born must die. He reminded them of these 4 principles of impermanence. Then he urged everyone to pull themselves together and resume the practice and propagation of the Dharma. He said it this way as well. So while there is often great sorrow when a master passes away, what matters most is how to continue the Dharma that the master cared about. This is very important. I remember that the Mahakaruna Sutra contains a description of Shakyamuni Buddha's nirvana. It is quite similar to the Platform Sutra. The Buddha told Ananda and his other close disciples, "Tonight is our last night. In the final watch of the night, I shall leave this world. Today is our final meeting. There will not be another opportunity like this. I am leaving this world, but do not be sad." When the Buddha said this, Ananda was in such agony that he couldn't even stand. His eyes were fixed on the Buddha, and his body was nearly collapsing. He was in tremendous pain. The Buddha asked Ananda, "Do you love me very much?" Ananda replied, "I love you more than words can describe. If I could, I would give my own life to prevent your nirvana, but I have no power to do so." Then the Buddha asked Ananda to hold out his hand. Taking Ananda's right hand in his own golden and soft hand, the Buddha said, "If you truly love me, you should do what I love in the future." And what do I love? Over countless eons, I have practiced virtue and the Buddha Dharma. After I leave this world, I entrust the Dharma to you. Propagate it continuously, and do not let the lineage be broken. That is what I love. If you truly love me, do the things that I love. I believe this applies to all of us here as well. In the future, regardless of the Master or the Buddha, if you wish to repay the kindness of the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and lineage masters, what should you do? You should engage in activities that benefit the Dharma and sentient beings. To a master, building a pagoda or performing rituals isn't necessarily the most important thing. When His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche passed away, even before his remains were handled, our academy held a meeting of all the Khenpos. During that meeting we said, "His Holiness has entered parinirvana. This is unavoidable. Impermanence has manifested. None of us wanted this, but there is no other way. However, we must continue the Buddhist academy and the Dharma lineage of His Holiness." So we gathered all the disciples whom His Holiness had held in high regard. We asked each of them to make a vow before the remains of His Holiness. Almost all the Khenpos and Khenmos of the various classes vowed that they would not leave the academy for at least 3 years. They vowed to maintain pure discipline, engage in hearing, contemplating, and meditating, and do their best to teach the Dharma. Because everyone made such a vow, everyone relied on this vow. After 3 years, the management of the academy was reorganized and reconsidered. This is a teaching for us. When any master passes away, when the master one has relied upon passes away, crying is useless and sorrow is useless. If worldly people want to weep loudly or spend a lot of money on funeral rites, that is their choice. But the most crucial thing is what the master spent his entire life propagating, the true Dharma. If that true Dharma can continue to flourish, that is the greatest service one can offer the master. He says it this way here as well. The master said young master Shenhui has attained the state where good and not good are equal. He is unmoved by either slander or praise and is free from both sorrow and joy. The rest of you have not attained this. Because Shenhui did not cry, the sixth patriarch addressed him as young master Shenhui. Actually, although he called him young master, based on Shenhui's birth date, when calculated according to Shenhui's year of birth, he must have been at least 28 or 29 years old at the time. So he wasn't exactly a young boy, but compared to the other senior elders, Shenhui was relatively young. The master said that Shenhui had realized the equality of good and bad. He was not swayed by praise or blame, nor was he affected by grief or joy. The rest of you have not attained this. What is wrong with you all? When I spoke of my passing, many of you started weeping. After so many years in the mountains, what kind of way have you been practicing? For how many years have you been practicing in the mountains? You have been practicing in the mountains for all these years, yet when faced with birth and death, you start crying. What have you really been practicing? I see this among our fellow practitioners as well. When they hear that a parent has died, they start worrying. What kind of ritual should I perform? They just passed away. What should I do? Should I go back? But going back won't help. I couldn't sleep last night. On one hand, we are ordinary beings, so it's natural to feel pain when a family member dies. But after years of practice, crying doesn't help. You should simply do what needs to be done for them. For whom are you grieving now? Whom are you worried about? Now that I've said this, many of you are sad and pained. For whom are you worried? I say this now, and many of you begin to feel sad and pained. For whom are you worried? If you are worried because you do not know where I am going, I know where I am going myself. Are you worried that I don't know where I'm going? Are you concerned about my future life or destination after I pass away? Actually, that's unnecessary. I know exactly where I am going. If I did not know, I would not have told you in advance. You are weeping because you do not know where I am going. If I didn't know my destination, I would not have given you a month's notice. I know very clearly which Pure Land I will be reborn in, so there's no need for these tears. By crying like this, you're implying that your teacher is pitiful, that he's dying, and what will he do? In reality, worrying about a master's passing, their illness, or their fatigue is often a superfluous concern. In the 6 realms of cyclic existence, there are countless pitiful sentient beings. If you don't worry about them or feel sadness or compassion for them, then there's likely no need to worry about anything else. If you knew where I was going, you would not be crying. Dharmata is fundamentally without arising or ceasing, without coming or going. All of you sit down and I will recite a Gatha for you. I know my destination. There is no need to cry. Crying won't change anything. When it's time for someone to leave, no amount of weeping can stop it. To Maucho of phenomena, there is no arising or ceasing, no birth or death. This is the way things have always been, so it's best for you to sit quietly and I will give you a verse. He wanted to point directly to the original nature. It is called the Gatha of true and false, motion and stillness. If you recite this Gatha, you will share my view. If you recite this Gatha often, you will be just like me, free to come and go, full of joy. Your realization can be completely identical to my own secret intent. Practice according to it, and you will not lose the fundamental purpose of our school. If you practice this way, our Zen tradition will not lose its purpose. The assembly of monks bowed and requested the master to recite the Gatha. The monks were obedient. They stopped crying. They wiped away their tears and prepared to listen to the Gatha of true and false, motion and stillness. Then the 6th patriarch began to recite the verse. Everything is without reality, so do not look for reality in it. If one sees reality in it, this seeing is entirely unreal. What this means is that nothing in the entire world possesses inherent reality. Precisely because nothing is real, the truth we perceive, primarily through our eyes, does not truly exist either. The eyes, ears, and nose are not valid measures. The tongue, body, and mind are also not. If these faculties were valid measures, of what use would the noble path be to anyone? What we perceive through our six senses, eyes, ears, nose, and so on, is not valid cognition. If what we see through the six senses were considered valid, what other truth would we need to seek? In reality, everything we ordinary beings perceive is a product of delusion. Nothing is inherently real. The Shurangama Sutra also states, when we speak of the false to reveal the true, both the true and the false are equally illusory. Everything we perceive, whether we label it true or false, is entirely deceptive. Nothing is ultimately real. Even the true is not real. If even the true is not real, how can there be the perceiver and the perceived? If this is the case, then neither reality nor unreality exists. Where then are the perceiver and the perceived? There is no seeing and no object seen. As the verse says, if one sees reality in it, this kind of seeing is not true seeing. Since nothing is inherently real, how can there be a real seeing of the truth? A similar teaching is found in the Sutra on the Mahayana method of the 6 paramitas. Like a person with cataracts who falsely sees flowers in the sky, the mind is agitated and clouded by habitual tendencies, and from this, the 3 realms of existence appear. Our habitual tendencies of attachment, aversion, and ignorance disturb our minds in this degenerate age, causing the appearances of the 3 realms to manifest. Therefore, none of the appearances within these realms are real. Our perception is not an experience of reality. We should not assume that because we see something, it truly exists. In truth, nothing we see is real. If you can find the truth within yourself, then apart from the false, the mind is true. If your own mind does not leave the false, there is no truth, so where could truth be found? Does this mean there is absolutely nothing true? Actually, from the perspective of the 3rd turning of the wheel of Dharma and the definitive tantras, there is indeed something true, recognizing the original face of one's own mind. In conventional terms, we can call this true. If you are genuinely looking for the truth, you must move away from false conceptual thoughts. That is the true mind. In other words, if the mind does not free itself from these false deceptive thoughts, then where could truth possibly be? If our obscurations and concepts remain, then neither true nor untrue makes sense. When one truly recognizes their nature, as the Zen tradition holds, the recognition of the mind's original face can conventionally be called true. But this truth is not the opposite of falsehood in a dualistic sense. It is like emptiness. Both empty and non-empty are conventional labels, yet great emptiness and great bliss are valid. It is a state beyond words and thoughts, not what we conceptually imagine. It is not the true that stands opposite to false. It is like emptiness. Both empty and non-empty are ultimately untenable, yet great emptiness and great bliss are valid. It is a state beyond words and thoughts, not what we conceptually imagine. Sentient beings are characterized by movement. The insentient are characterized by stillness. If you practice the path of stillness, you will be as motionless as the insentient. Sentient beings possess consciousness and are subject to movement, while the insentient, like rocks and wood, do not move. If we only practice a path of stillness or motionless behavior, we become no different from insentient objects. In Zen, what we often call withered Zen or dead Zen, where one clings to nothing and simply remains in a state of blankness, is not actually praised in the ultimate view of the tradition. This point appears several times in the Platform Sutra. Sentient beings move, and insentient things are still. If we simply remain in a state where nothing can move, it is not the highest practice. We would be no different from inanimate matter. Being motionless is not necessarily a high spiritual realization. If you seek the true immobility, there is immobility within the mobile. Immobility is simply immobility. The insentient lack, the seed of Buddhahood. This is similar to the teachings in the Ornament of Clear Realization. What does it mean? I have looked at some commentaries, and they don't explain it very clearly, but I believe it should be understood this way. If we are looking for true immobility, the state of the unchanging original nature, it is actually immobility within the mobile. within our active thoughts, afflictions, and conceptualizations, even when the waves are crashing and surging, their essence has never been separate from the water of the ocean. The essence is motionless. The essence of a moving thought is itself immobile. It is immobile. The essence of a moving thought is itself immobile. If we think that true stillness only comes from keeping the mind in a fixed state, then we are no different from insentient things, and we would have cut off the seed of Buddhahood. The ultimate meaning of Zen is that if you truly want to find immobility, you recognize it within the very movements of your conceptual mind. It isn't something that can only be found in a state of absolute stillness. Of course, in the Tantric teachings, we can find it both within the moving mind and within the still mind. This is what we call the union of shamatha and vipassana. In Zen, there is a specific caution against becoming like a motionless, insentient object. If you are like a rock or a piece of wood, you lose the potential for Buddhahood. Thus, this kind of static state is intentionally rejected. One who can skillfully distinguish all characteristics is immobile in the ultimate sense. To have such a view is the function of suchness. In the realm of conventional reality, one can skillfully distinguish phenomena. Everything can appear clearly, yet there is no attachment. Appearances continue uninterrupted like a dream or an illusion, while remaining immobile within the ultimate truth. For instance, when I perceive external objects, the appearances do not cease, yet those appearances do not truly exist in the ultimate sense. They have never moved from that state. This insight is the true wondrous function. This is very similar to the states described in the treasury of the Dharma Dhatu. This is indeed quite similar. While you are perceiving, appearances do not cease and are clearly known, yet this knowing does not produce deluded concepts that bind you. This unbound essence, inseparable from unceasing luminosity and appearance, is what we call wondrous function. In the treasury of the true reality, these are referred by various names such as ornament or dynamic power. There are different names to describe this. I tell all you seekers of the way, you must apply your minds with great effort. Do not enter the gate of the Mahayana only to cling to the wisdom of birth and death. I say to all of you studying the Buddhist path, you must be very diligent in your practice. You must apply your minds. Do not just practice a little when you feel cheerful and then quit, or even start slandering the teachings when you don't feel like it tomorrow. That is certainly not right. That kind of approach is certainly not right. You must study with long-term intense faith. Since you are investing your time, you must truly taste the flavor of Buddhism. This will definitely transform your mindset. We should start with small things. At first, our basic character might be poor. We might struggle with harmony and basic social interactions. When you first take refuge, your personality might be difficult, your mind troubled, and you might have many faults. But if you gradually change like dyeing a piece of wool, you will see a major transformation in a short time. This is very important. After that, you can move towards supramundane realizations, recognizing awareness and comprehending the profound meaning of the middle way. Do not be like lazy or mischievous students who graduate with the same poor results they started with. There is no point in that. Do not enter the gate of the Mahayana only to cling to the wisdom of birth and death. Do not enter the Mahayana path and yet make no progress, remaining preoccupied with the cycles of birth and death. Such people suffer greatly both in life and at the moment of death. But a true practitioner is at ease with both. Whether it is their own death or the death of others, they feel no terror or fear. They have prepared themselves in advance. Just as a soldier who has trained well goes into battle without fear, many practitioners are ready in advance. When someone else dies, they think, they have passed, impermanence has manifested, and they recite Om Mani Padme Hum. And when it is their own time, they are like the sixth patriarch, I'm leaving next month, goodbye. This is quite different from some people I know. I heard someone say, I'm afraid to go to a Western doctor for a checkup. If they find late-stage cancer, I won't be able to handle it. I absolutely won't go. I'm terrified they'll tell me I have cancer. As a practitioner, what is there to fear, whether it's late-stage cancer or whenever death comes? Look at the sixth patriarch. He knew a month in advance, yet he wasn't afraid. Yet he himself had no fear. We all come into this world, and eventually everyone must leave. Someone with even a little realization will not be afraid. This is very important. If my words resonate with you, then let us discuss the meaning of the Buddha's teachings together. If they do not truly resonate, then join your palms and let them be happy. He says that when propagating the Zen tradition in the future, if these words resonate with someone, you share a common connection and can discuss these profound principles. This refers to the Zen teachings discussed above, directly pointing to the teachings of the Platform Sutra of the sixth Patriarch. But indirectly it tells us how to share the Dharma, see if the other person can receive it. If they resonate with it, continue teaching them. If they don't, if they aren't interested or focused, there is no need to start an argument. There is no need to start an argument with them. Don't say you're being disrespectful, you've cut off your wholesome roots, you're a bad person. I'm teaching such profound Dharma, and you don't even care. You really lack any connection. A bodhisattva like me is right here giving you instructions, and you act like this. There is no need to point out their faults. Just join your palms and let them be happy. If they aren't interested in Zen, then just have some black tea, pu'er, or green tea together, or give them a piece of chocolate. Just make them happy and joyful. The Mahayana is not about creating enemies. You should establish a positive connection and leave a good impression. This is what we call skillful means. Some Buddhists really don't know how to observe these connections. They insist on doing things exactly their way. If others don't follow, conflict arises. Many families are in disharmony simply because of differing views. When views differ, each side demands that the other comply. When neither side yields, the Iraq War begins. In this school, there is fundamentally no contention. Contention loses the meaning of the way. Clinging to the method of argument subjects one's nature to birth and death. In our Zen tradition, we do not emphasize arguments. When people are in conflict and argue, the fundamental principle of Buddhism is lost, especially in the Mahayana and Zen. There is no need for arguments between student and teacher, among students, or between Buddhists and non-Buddhists. There is a verse in the Pratimoksha Sutra, and also in the Chinese four-part Vinaya, the harmony of the Sangha is joy. In harmony there is no contention. Where there is harmony, there is the Dharma, and one can always practice the way diligently. When the Sangha is in harmony, there is the joy of the Dharma. When we are united in that joy, we do not argue. Just like here at our academy, everyone is united and in harmony, so there are no disputes. Only with harmony and without contention can the true Dharma exist. That is when you have the opportunity to practice. If two people are fighting, they definitely aren't practicing well. 3 people fighting is even worse. Therefore, in countries at war, the economy cannot develop and people's lives are miserable. Therefore, I emphasize again and again to all Buddhists, at the very least we must know how to interact, get along, and cooperate with one another. This is even more important for us as Buddhists. It's a bit better now, but in the past, there was constant bickering among Buddhists. For example, 2 people might be in the same environment, and one says, "If he is there, I'm not coming." A while ago, when we started tantric classes in various places, I asked for some groups to be reorganized. The reaction was very strong. If I'm put in that group, I'd rather not listen to the tantric teachings at all. I find that person so annoying and upsetting. I won't go. I refuse to attend the tantric teachings. I later realized that such a person isn't even qualified to hear the tantric teachings. We are all Vajra brothers and sisters. Setting aside the Mahayana view that all beings possess Buddha nature and have been our parents, we are all studying in the same place of practice, under the same tradition. We should be supporting each other. We are supposed to be Buddhists with the spirit of even offering our own flesh to others. If we were practicing better, our great teacher Shakyamuni Buddha, over countless eons, cut off his own flesh for beings with whom he had no personal connection. He offered even his own flesh to them. Yet some of us hold on to a few words someone said to us long ago. Some have an incredible memory for that. It's like they've attained the dharani of never forgetting. If someone says one thing or shows dissatisfaction with me just once, I remember it forever. Yet, a Mahayana teaching from the Master is forgotten by the very next day. I think we should cultivate that good memory for the sutras and treatises instead. Let's remember the scriptures and try our best to forget the negatives. This is also what is taught in the standards for being a good pupil and child. If we argue, we truly lose the essence of our school, especially when it turns into bickering. I once mentioned this when I was teaching the Buddhist teachings on the Pure Land. There is a story in the sutras about 2 bhikshus who were debating. Later, after returning to his quarters, one of them remained incredibly angry. In the end, he actually died from his own rage. After passing away, he was reborn as a venomous snake, living in that room in great misery. The Buddha eventually became aware of this. He sent Ananda and Maudgalyana to help the snake find liberation. However, when they arrived, the snake wouldn't even come out. There was nothing they could do. The bhikshu who had been the snake's opponent in the debate also tried to find a way to draw it out, but it still refused. Finally, the Buddha came in person. Faced with the Buddha's majestic power, the snake had no choice but to emerge. Once it came out, the Buddha began to admonish it. As a practitioner, how could you harbor such immense hatred? Do you realize the gravity of the faults of such anger? The Buddha added, if you two do not apologize to one another and practice repentance, you will surely fall into hell. After the Buddha spoke, the snake and the other bhikshu repented to each other, and the snake was eventually liberated. This is how the story goes. So for some of us, this kind of hatred can be truly terrifying. It brings immense suffering to both ourselves and others, in this life and in lives to come. The methods to counteract such anger are explained in great detail in the chapter on patience in the way of the Bodhisattva. We also have methods in the Great Perfection to completely uproot hatred. For ordinary people, this is quite difficult. But at the very least, we must look back at ourselves. I often think this way. As Buddhists, the teachings we study are supreme methods meant to eliminate attachment, aversion, and ignorance. If we cannot even manage basic human relationships, then I fear we won't be able to reach any of those deeper realizations. Some people say, I have bad relationships with people, but I'm close to attaining realization in the Great Perfection. Whether such a realization is possible, I don't know. Perhaps I just don't understand it. Therefore, we do not praise those methods of practice that involve clinging to conflict and arguing with others. Clinging to the method of argument subjects one's nature to birth and death. Constant arguing and mutual disparagement will naturally lead one back into the cycle of samsara. One will not find liberation. The sixth patriarch's instructions are indeed very deep. We can feel a profound meaning here. Even when explaining simple truths, his words are direct and uncover various layers of significance. I am just looking at the literal meaning to deepen our shared understanding. After the assembly had heard the Gatha, they all prostrated. Understanding the master's intent, each of them focused their mind and practiced according to the Dharma, never daring to argue again. They knew that the master would not remain in this world for long. At that moment, all the disciples understood the meaning of the verse. They all prostrated with great respect. It is very important for us to regularly prostrate to those who teach the Dharma. Last year, while we were doing the preliminaries, I prostrated every day. At that time, both my physical health and my state of mind were excellent. Lately, I haven't been prostrating as much. If you have the time, you should prostrate more in the morning and evening. The merit is truly immense. It is also a wonderful exercise for the body. Prostration is a full body workout. From a worldly perspective, I think it is the best form of gymnastics. In the future, schools should replace their morning radio calisthenics with 100 full prostrations. They can mix in small prostrations with 100 full prostrations total. That would be enough. After prostrating, they understood the master's secret intent. Each of them focused their mind. They all took the master's teachings to heart. They practiced according to the Dharma and never dared to argue again. Regarding debate, our Tibetan monks at the academy are quite skilled. On the road, you often see young monastics debating. Sound is impermanent because it is produced. The conch shell is white because it is a color. They sometimes block the path while debating. On one hand, this is good. They start from a young age. But on the other hand, as I said to a Khenpo this morning, if these young monks are only accustomed to debating from childhood, will they know how to practice properly later? Sometimes, debating and practicing can feel like two different things. Those who love to meditate aren't always the ones who love to debate. To possess both the wisdom of debate and the power of meditative practice requires certain conditions. These disciples never dared to argue again. As I mentioned, contention is not the intent of Zen. Of course, the argument referred to here is unwholesome contention. Authentic Dharma-based debate, like that found in Tibetan Buddhism, is very necessary. But we shouldn't argue every single day. Some friends argue from morning until night, endlessly. As Rongzom Pandita said, one should engage in rigorous debate during the day and deep, quiet meditation at night. That is the hallmark of a true practitioner's behavior. I think this is very important. Otherwise, you get into the habit of always looking for faults in others. If you do that, you might find yourself still arguing even as you face death. You might find yourself still arguing even as you face death. In the history of Tibetan Buddhism, there were certain masters who passed away while reciting the threefold logical reasoning of valid cognition. There are such masters as well. They knew that the master would not remain in this world for long. They understood that the master would manifest his parinirvana in a month's time. They were very clear about the situation. The elder Fahai bowed again and asked, "After the master enters nirvana, to whom will the robe and the Dharma be entrusted?" Ohai prostrated once more and asked the sixth patriarch, "Since this is the case, who will inherit your Dharma and robe after you pass away?" "You are the sixth patriarch, who will be the seventh?" "Is it my turn yet?" the master answered. "It's not you." He had other arrangements, which he explained next. The master said, "From the time I first preached at Dafan Temple until today, my teachings have been recorded and circulated. They are titled the Platform Sutra of the Dharma Treasure. You must guard and pass them down from one generation to the next to liberate all beings. If you speak according to this, it is called the True Dharma." He said, "I have made arrangements. From the time I taught at Dafan Temple until now, the Platform Sutra of the Dharma Treasure has been recorded. It can now be circulated and passed on to others." Although the teachings were given in different locations, this entire collection shows the deep respect they had for their teacher. Including the disciples' questions, shows us the deep respect they had for their teacher and how much they valued the Dharma he spoke. They valued the Dharma teachings most deeply. We see this in Tibetan Buddhism as well. When someone composes an exceptional treatise, everyone is filled with joy. During the era of King Trisong Detsen, when several scriptures and treatises were translated, the monastics and lay people were all overjoyed. Even the king himself was delighted. Times changed gradually. During the Tang dynasty, why was Xuanzang held in such high esteem by the emperor? It was because the Buddha Dharma was so difficult to obtain. He brought back so many Dharma texts from India, which were incredibly precious to the people of the Han region at that time. Without the guidance of such true Dharma, people would have had no way to comprehend the profound meanings within. It was completely different from our modern era. Today, whether someone writes a text like the Platform Sutra or not, people might not value it much because there is so much available. But at that time, he said that the entire process had been recorded. The sixth patriarch named the text himself. In history, it's common for a master to name a work compiled by his disciples because he knows exactly what was taught. Disciples would compile the notes, and the master would then give the work its name. This tradition has always existed in history. Nowadays, some might question whether a work compiled by a disciple is credible. Some say, compiled or edited by such and such disciple, is it credible? That is not necessarily credible. Of course, a disciple's level may vary. Some have reached a genuinely high level, while others may not have fully penetrated the master's hidden intent. But generally speaking, from ancient times in Tibetan, Han, and Indian Buddhist traditions, after a master spoke, he didn't necessarily write everything down himself. Disciples would compile the notes. This tradition has always existed. Some people today don't understand history and just like to criticize, which is not right. For example, in the translation bureaus of Kumarajiva and Xuanzang, many people participated together. Historical records show that sometimes as many as 300 people were involved. So, I think you should be aware of this. The master named the text the Platform Sutra of the Dharma Treasure. This was named by the sixth patriarch himself. You must guard and pass them down from one generation to the next. As I said earlier, when the Buddha was about to enter nirvana, he said, "What I love is my Dharma." He had protected this Dharma for countless eons. Therefore, a master may not love his own body or his family, but what he truly protects and entrusts to others is his Dharma. The sixth patriarch said, "You should guard it well, but simply guarding it is not enough. It must be passed down from generation to disciples with the right connection to liberate sentient beings. To do this is to truly propagate the true Dharma. For me, the sixth patriarch, this is the greatest way to repay my kindness. I am preaching the Dharma to you now, but I will not hand down the robe. This is because your roots of faith are pure and mature, you have no doubts, and are capable of carrying out this great task." He said, "This time I am transmitting the Dharma to you." Among the disciples of the sixth patriarch, there were the 10 great disciples, and often hundreds or thousands of followers. He had transmitted the Dharma to them, but he did not intend to pass on the robe. Don't expect to receive the robe. I'm not passing it down. And why was that? Because when the Zen tradition was first brought from India to China, the faith of sentient beings was not yet mature. There was a need for a physical proof. Even today in the Han region, many people ask, is this a real master? Is there proof? Is there a certificate or a monastic ID? They rely entirely on external appearances. This is a sign that Buddhism has not yet fully flourished in a particular area. When Buddhism truly flourishes, everyone knows. For instance, when education in the West reaches a certain level, a person doesn't necessarily need someone else's endorsement. If they graduated from a reputable school and their knowledge truly reaches that level, everyone recognizes it. Such teachers don't worry about finding work. Similarly, why did Bodhidharma pass the robe to only one person? Because people's faith was not yet mature, but now your faith is mature. I have given you the Dharma, and your faith is firm. The faith of the sentient beings who follow you is also mature. Therefore, you are fully capable of carrying out this great task. Some say the Zen lineage ended with the sixth patriarch, but as I've said before, such people don't understand history. Zen did not end. It has been passed down to the present day. In the Han region, Zen is still one of the most flourishing traditions. It's just that the tradition of passing down the robe and bowl ended with the sixth patriarch. But it was no longer needed. What had been achieved by that point was sufficient. This was also prophesied by Bodhidharma. What was Bodhidharma's prophecy? According to the intent of the Gatha left by our first patriarch Bodhidharma, the robe should not be passed on. His Gatha said, the first patriarch in the Han region was Bodhidharma. Regarding the transmission, he had a prophecy regarding the transmission. He said then that the robe and bowl should not be passed on after the sixth generation. The transmission of the robe would stop after the sixth generation, but the Dharma would continue to be passed down. How would the Dharma be transmitted? He said then, I originally came to this land to transmit the Dharma and save deluded beings. One flower with 5 petals, the fruit ripens of itself. This is a very important verse in Zen. Bodhidharma said, I came to China to this land. What was his purpose? It wasn't to collect alms or just to leave a single shoe behind and disappear. My purpose was to transmit the Zen teachings and save sentient beings from delusion. The sign of this success would be 1 flower with 5 petals. This is a bit mysterious and carries a hidden meaning. 1 flower opens into 5 petals or branches, and the fruit will ripen naturally. There are 2 ways to interpret this. One is that the 1 flower refers to Bodhidharma, the first patriarch. The 5 petals refer to the 5 patriarchs from the 2nd to the 6th. This means the flower would fully bloom by the time of the 6th patriarch. This is one interpretation. Another interpretation of 1 flower with 5 petals is one we mentioned earlier, the 5 major schools of Zen that eventually formed. These are the Wei-Yang, Linji, Caodong, Faiyan, and Yunmen schools. These different schools formed over time. There are 2 ways to interpret this. If Bodhidharma is the 1 flower, then the 5 petals end with the 6th patriarch. If the 6th patriarch is the 1 flower, then he opens up 5 different lineages. In either case, the Dharma lineage of Zen would form naturally and continue without interruption. Once we understand this, we will not find it interrupted. Once we understand this, we gain a better perspective on the Zen tradition. After studying the Platform Sutra this time, I personally have gained new insights into the major points of Zen. I imagine some of our friends here are already very well versed in Zen, and this might be redundant for them. But for most, especially those new to Buddhism, I hope this provides a fresh understanding of the profound teachings of Zen. Well, we will stop here for today.
Bandara Badna Sadar Bandara Badna Sadar Bandara Badna Sadar